This is PIX on Politics Daily with Dan Mannarino.
Hey everybody, welcome to PIX on Politics Daily. It is September 9th. I'm Dan Mannarino. Hopefully you're all having a fantastic day. Let's catch you up to speed on what's happening in the race for New York City mayor. So there's a new poll. By the way, big news happening on Wednesday morning. We, along with Emerson College and The Hill and News Nation, releasing our own poll in the mayor's race. But there was one that was released today with the New York Times and Siena College. And it had Zohran Mamdani, 46%, Andrew Cuomo, 24%, Curtis Sliwa, 15%, Eric Adams, 9%, with 5% saying they don't know or did not say. So that's kind of where things stand right now, right? Yesterday, we had Senator John Liu on the show, and he was talking about how this is going to be a big week because there's this deadline of Thursday to have your name on the ballot, whether or not that's actually accurate, right? So he was saying, well, it could be very well that Eric Adams drops out because he won't have his name on the ballot on Thursday. But somebody who knows all about whether or not their name can be on the ballot or not is Jim Walden, former mayoral candidate who has now dropped out of the race, and he is joining me now. So Jim, good to see you.
Hey, thanks, Dan, for having me on.
So first off, let's begin with the suspension of your campaign.
Sure.
And why you decided to do that, right? Because September was always going to be this big month to kind of figure out if people can coalesce around one person. And I've spoken to you many times about this, and you seemed like you were in it, saying you were going to change, things were going to change for you. What happened?
So I really just had a hard conversation with myself after looking at the math as carefully and as dispassionately as I could, and I realized that I was likely going to take very few votes away from Mamdani, and that I was going to take more votes away from candidates that were polling higher than I am,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't see a way in which I could reconcile with myself spending another $1 million that I had in the bank, another $4 million that I could have raised to try to surge only to become the spoiler. I've said from the beginning that I was not running this race to be a spoiler. This is not a vanity play on my part. I believed fundamentally that New York City needs independent political leadership for the next 8 years. Obviously, that message didn't catch fire with the voters, and I wanted to just make sure that I was true to my own values and principles. And the timing was tough to navigate because a lot of people were telling me just stay in for another month. But I knew that the certification date was up, and I knew that there was no chance that my name was going to come off the ballot after certification of the ballot. That's physically impossible. And so I just decided to bite the bullet and do what I thought was the right thing by withdrawing and being as aggressive as possible to get the Board of Elections to take my name off the ballot.
Okay, so let's break that down to many different factors here and begin with the idea of taking your name off the ballot. What's Thursday? What's Thursday's deadline?
So Thursday is the date on which the ballot is supposed to be officially certified by the Board of Elections. So that's just a process by which they all look at the ballot, make sure that there are no errors, make sure that everyone's represented, party names are correct, et cetera, and then that's final.
But you want your name off the ballot.
Correct.
You filed to do so. They put back a letter saying you were late.
Yes.
So your name's going to be on the ballot?
Well, it's unclear from my perspective because they invoked a part of the law and claimed that under that part of the law I was late. They're not looking at the whole law. The law that they cited said that any independent candidate had to decline a nomination 3 days after their petitions were filed, which was back in May. That's not the only part of the law. There's another part of the law that says candidates can decline, and it's unconditional. And so even the Board of Elections, when they've administered these rules, have said, listen, nothing's really firm in the law. We've got to use some judgment and discretion, and they've let candidates off ballots before. They do it when someone dies, obviously. That makes sense. If someone moves out of state, if someone's nominated to be a judge, and if someone is accused of or convicted of a crime. None of these things are written in the law. That's all Board of Elections discretion. And so from my perspective, they have the discretion to take me off. And it's just my job today at 1 o'clock to convince them to do it.
Curtis Sliwa says that if you drop out of the race and you want your name off the ballot, that you have to give back matching funds. Is that true?
That's incorrect. It's true in the sense of if you have unspent matching funds, you have to give those back. Now, I've got $1 million in my account. My account is commingled between matching funds and my regular donations. So there's a whole audit process that's going to happen in about a year. And then the Campaign Finance Board, another regulator for elections, they determine whether or not you've spent matching funds on what's called qualified expenditures. If any candidate spent public dollars on unqualified expenditures, you have to pay that money
Got it.
back. But that shouldn't be the case with respect to me because I believe all my expenditures were qualified.
Yeah. So listening to you, you saw the writing on the wall and said it's not going to work in my favor. When you look at the poll that just came out today, right, and you look at it, Zohran Mamdani is always been in the 40s. Should others follow suit with what you were doing?
100%. I mean, I've been saying this since July. This is not something that I just started espousing now. Back in July, I recognized, having looked at the data, what the problem was going to be. In the same way that I was the one person that predicted Mamdani was going to win, about a month before the Democratic primary. In this scenario, it is a fact that if there's multiple candidates competing against Mamdani, Mamdani's going to win. He's going to get somewhere between 550,000 and 650,000 votes in the general election. We've only had the most we've ever had turn up at an election was the Dinkins-Giuliani race after Dinkins' first term. That was 1.3 million. Do the math. There's not that many votes to split. So one candidate is going to need all of those votes. If there's 2 or 3 candidates, we're cooked. That means we're walking Mamdani into City Hall, and I very much believe that that would be a disaster for New Yorkers.
So who should go?
Well, what I'd like them to do is get in a room and figure it out. I mean, they're all candidates that have long public service. They could come up with some sort of fair way to decide. From my perspective, I don't care if they draw straws. But
from being somebody who was in the race, who should go? Not between them. Who do you, as Jim Walden, think should drop out of the race?
Well, what I've said is I believe the candidates have the right to run an aggressive race. Honestly, it seems as though over the last couple polls, everyone is stalling at some level. And so whether, everyone's got a claim that they're the best candidate and everyone else, Sliwa and Adams in particular, are really attacking Cuomo. From my perspective, I wish that they would do 2 things. Stop attacking each other and focus on Mamdani, and figure out a fair way to say, listen, we're running, 2 of us are going to drop out. We're supporting this person. We're asking all of our supporters to support them as well. If it's Cuomo, he's obviously the front runner right now. What I've said is I'm going to give everyone time to run their campaigns until October 1. I've literally been trying to encourage each of the campaigns to adopt some of my policies, which I think will better compete against Mamdani than the policies that they're espousing. Whoever on October 1st is the front runner, that's the person I'm going to endorse.
So you don't, meaning poll numbers.
Correct.
But what if it's, say, Curtis Sliwa?
I believe that any of these candidates, and let's not discount Joseph Hernandez, who is the other independent, any one of these 4 candidates would be superior by light years to Mamdani.
So the reason I bring up Curtis Sliwa is because he says, I shouldn't be lumped in with the other 2 because I'm a major party nominee. I'm a Republican nominee, and other Republicans down ballot have to have my support, and they're going to vote down ballot, right? So he's like, I shouldn't be factored into the rest who drop out. It should be between Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo.
Well, I don't agree with Curtis on that. I've said this many times publicly. It doesn't matter. I mean, Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams are running on an independent line, but they're Democrats. They're major party candidates too. They're just not the nominee. He's a Republican in a city that has very few Republican voters. There's 3 times as many independents as there are Republicans. So to me, that's just an excuse. And what I have been saying, and I'll say it again, is if these candidates care about New York and they all agree, each of them have said that Zohran Mamdani represents an existential threat to the city of New York, then they should put their values behind their actions and figure out a way to coalesce together.
Timelines are timelines, right? So I know you're giving this October 1 deadline, but why? Like, why not just do it now?
Well,
why set this deadline of October 1st when everyone's talking about it now?
Well, because in fairness, until the Democratic primary, people weren't really giving attention. I mean, they were giving attention to Adams because he's the sitting mayor. They were giving attention to Cuomo because Cuomo was in the Democratic primary. They weren't giving a lot of attention to Sliwa. They weren't giving a lot of attention to me, although you were very kind to have me on a couple times. And they weren't giving any attention to Joseph Hernandez, who had filed his petitions back in May. So if we're going to have competitive elections, candidates have a right to run aggressive races. And there's no magic to October 1st. My thinking was it would at least give the one candidate a little bit more than a month to compete head to head against Mamdani. And that's when people are really going to be focusing on the election. A lot of people still are not focused in on the election.
It's fair. There's been a lot of talk about your relationship with Andrew Cuomo and whether or not you guys spoke and came up with that plan about the September poll idea, whether or not he asked you to drop out of the race and he would give you a job in the administration. All these things are kind of out there in the ether.
Yes.
Have you spoken to Andrew Cuomo?
I have. And I've also spoken to Joseph Hernandez, and I've spoken to representatives of Mayor Adams' campaign and Curtis Sliwa's campaign. I've communicated with them all. And so I'm not a candidate anymore. I am doing this for New York, period, full stop. I've already announced that I'm going back to my law firm starting on October 1. I'm not looking for a job. I've got a career. I don't need a job in someone else's administration.
Because Andrew Cuomo was very complimentary to you, dropping out, saying, "Look, you did the right thing." Jim Walden.
I don't know that he was that complimentary. I mean, it was more Rich has a party who hates me like he hates anyone. But they said the right things because they agreed with the message. Maybe because he's the front runner.
So the conversation with Andrew Cuomo was what?
Oh, I've had a couple of conversations with him, but we never had a conversation about the poll idea before I issued the July 3rd press release calling the No Spoiler Pact. And I've had a couple of conversations with both him and Melissa DeRosa kind of about the race in general. And I've strongly advocated that they adopt a couple of my policies. So I just want to be clear. From my perspective, this is a little bit no good deed goes unpunished. But people are skeptical. People know that I represented him at some earlier point during the Tish James investigation for a period. That is what it is. Let people think what they want. I know that I'm doing this for the right reasons. And if people think that there is some sort of political motive behind it, that'll become clear in time that it wasn't the case.
Have you told him to drop out? No.
I haven't told anybody to drop out.
So what do you make of the
October 1st is my date.
Gotcha. Okay. So what do you think of the whole thing with Eric Adams right now, the mayor, and this idea that he's being floated to get a job within the Trump administration? He's flat out saying it's not true. Take my word for it. I'm in this race till the end.
Come on. On Friday, when he called that press conference, everyone thought that was going to be the dropout moment. So that was one of two things. Either he was looking for more leverage or it was authentic. I don't really know which. I don't begrudge President Trump trying to get a candidate out of a race where he cares about the outcome. It's not like that's the first time that's ever happened in our history. That's happened plenty of times. People are putting it through a political lens right now as if Donald Trump and Andrew Cuomo are old buddies or something. I can't really assess their relationship. I've never seen them in a room together, so I don't really know. I don't begrudge the president that, but it seems like he's backed off that. I mean, over the weekend he said something like, "I guess we'll have to get used to a communist mayor."
And just this morning, President Trump was on Sid Rosenberg's radio show.
Oh, I didn't know
where
that.
He said, "I didn't talk to Eric Adams. I don't have a job for Eric Adams. I've never offered him a job."
Oh, okay.
So that was his words this morning. That was new. That was new information that came out this morning. It's just Eric Adams on last week on the morning show, PIX 11 Morning News, said, "I didn't speak to anybody about a job." And then when I was in Florida, and then it came out that he actually did.
Right.
And so it's just taking people at their word and whether or not we can really believe them.
But isn't he supposed to meet with Trump later this week?
That was the rumor. He says he's not.
He says he's not meeting with him. I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
So listen, at the end of the day, I never thought that there'd be something that I would agree with President Trump on, but I agree with him on this, which is if there are positions that can be offered to other candidates that are acceptable to them that cause them to withdraw, good, right? I want to see a one-on-one race because what I don't want to see happen is a minority of voters forcing down the throats of everyone a candidate that is so dangerous. And by the way, I don't just say that because of Mamdani himself. I say this because this is part of a national movement.
But I know we're going to go over time here, and that's okay, guys.
Sorry.
No, that's good. Why do you believe he's so dangerous? When so many folks voted for him, the most Democrats in the history of primaries voted for him. Why do you believe he's dangerous?
So first of all, and I don't need to unpack all this, but I can, and I've looked at this very closely. It really is part of a national movement to move the United States away from its capitalist values into a socialist or communist construct. I'm not down with that. On Mamdani,
Are you saying that because you're a capitalist?
I'm saying that because I'm a devout capitalist.
Yeah.
And we innovated a safety net that is the strongest in the world. We do more good for people at the lower end of the economic scale than any other country. And we've done it for years, and we've innovated in ways that has not crushed our tax base and has lifted up businesses at the same time as lifting up the poor. That was what my whole campaign was about in my Kids in Poverty program, rebuilding NYCHA communities. Those are all things that can be done when you have a vibrant business sector. It's not going to happen when you turn over more power to corrupt governments. So that's the theoretical level at which I think that Mamdani's dangerous. On him, I mean, he's got a paper-thin resume. He's failed at basically every job he's ever had. The policies that he's putting out are completely unworkable and don't even solve the problem that he's pretending that he's fixing. And I fundamentally believe that he is an anti-Semite, anti-cop, anti-business, and completely wedded to identity politics, such that he now wants to hobble the NYPD by getting rid of the gang database, which is insanity. That's literally insanity. So for all those reasons, I think that he's an extremely dangerous person. Now, is he a great candidate? He is a very gifted young man when it comes to politics. His social media is wonderful. I mean, I laugh sometimes. I will now admit, I've liked some of his posts. So I give him a lot of credit. He's just misguided in a way that's really dangerous for the United States generally and New York specifically.
Okay. Got to leave it on this question here. Do you plan on running again?
I'm not going to rule it out. It's not my highest ambition. Right now, I'm going to go back to my law firm and continue to try to do good in every way that I can.
Okay. Jim Walden, appreciate you coming on.
Thank
That was a
you.
good conversation. And don't forget, everybody, like we said, tomorrow, right here on PIX 11 on Morning News, we're breaking the news with the new poll that we're putting out with Emerson, as well as The Hill and News Nation. So stay tuned for that. But that'll do it for PIX on Politics Daily today. I'll see you back here tomorrow.